Welcome to everyone listening today. This is our very first podcast from the Impact team here at the University Medical Center in Groningen in the Netherlands. My name is Anja Smikowski, and the topic today is rare diseases, specifically a disease which is called glycogen storage disease type 1b. And this is an inherited metabolic disease mostly presenting in children. We have two guests that I would like to welcome. Dr. Terry Derks is present. He is a metabolic pediatrician and associate professor at the University Medical Center in Groningen, where he also coordinates the Center of Expertise for patients who have hepatic glycogen storage disease. And we have Enrique Landelino Contreras. Enrique and his family live with glycogen storage disease 1b since Nina, his daughter, was diagnosed when she was 6 months old. Welcome, Enrique. Welcome, Terry. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we will talk about the disease, about living with the disease, and about how Terry and Enrique were able to find each other. I also find that very interesting. Terry, maybe you could start with briefly telling us what glycogen storage disease is.
Okay. Thank you again, Anja. Glycogen storage disease type 1 is an ultra-rare inherited metabolic disease which occurs in approximately 1 in 100,000 newborns. The type 1b is a specific subtype of the disease. In general, GSD type 1 patients can metabolize a certain compound which is called glucose 6-phosphate into glucose to supply energy to the body and to maintain a steady blood glucose level for the body. In most patients, the primary symptom is a severe low blood glucose level, which is called hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is harmful for the brain and may cause encephalopathy, coma, or convulsions. This can already present in the first hours or days of life, but this is not always immediately recognized as the first symptom of GSD type 1b. The cornerstone of this disease is a strict medically prescribed diet.
So patients have low glucose or low sugar levels since they cannot metabolize glucose as healthy people do. Therefore, they are on a very strict diet. Are there other characteristics of the disease?
The disease GSD type 1 is characterized by accumulation of specific compounds in the liver and in the kidneys, so like glycogen and fat, and that can result into an enlargement of the liver and the kidney, growth retardation, and short stature.
So far, most symptoms could be tackled with a diet, but as I understand, there is another characteristic of the disease that needs specific treatment next to the diet.
That's correct. Besides what I already mentioned, GSD1b is associated with impaired function of an important subset of white blood cells, the so-called neutrophils and monocytes. As a consequence, the GSD1b patients suffer from recurrent bacterial infections and a condition called inflammatory bowel disease. Over many years, GSD1b patients have been treated with a medicament called GCSF, which improves the numbers of neutrophils, but there is increasing concern about the complications of this particular treatment.
So, Enrique,
when Nina was diagnosed with glycogen storage disease 1b, how did your life change?
Well, when we got the diagnosis, our lives changed forever and dramatically, in so many ways. Both my wife and I, we have been humanitarian workers for more than 10 years. We have worked abroad all this time. So we were planning to take Nina with us. But of course, after the diagnosis, we had to change everything. And even in terms of the relationship with your partner, you don't have as much time as you would like to have because you have to focus a lot on the baby and on the treatment. And professionally, for instance, we had to stop at some point our careers. In the beginning, it was Marta that took an unpaid leave, and I continued working. And then after some time, like 1 year ago, I took an unpaid leave, and she started working again. So now let's say we are struggling to keep our jobs instead of thinking about having brilliant careers, no? And also because this is important so that we can guarantee a good future for Nina, and also a good health insurance, that can cover some of the cost. And then also socially, let's say, we cannot meet our friends as much as we used to do. We cannot travel as much as we would like to. But in any case, this disease doesn't give you time for regret or for sadness or for mourning, because you have to be on the top of it all the time. But in the end, despite everything I said, the biggest change we had in our life was Nina, and Nina is a wonderful human being. Everybody falls in love with her. So the biggest change we had, it was her, and it was a positive change. So we prefer to stick to that and to try to be with everything in the best possible manner.
Yes. Yeah, a few of the things that you just explained, I thought that sounds like a first baby experience. And just to get a perspective, so how often in the beginning did you have to feed Nina? Just to understand how often you had to get up, for example, at night.
Yeah, in the beginning, Nina was a very severe case of GSD type 1B. So basically, during the night, she was on continuous feeding with a pump, and still we had to wake up several times per night because there could be some obstruction, or maybe she could go into hypoglycemia despite the continuous feeding. And then during the day, we were feeding her every 40 minutes, which basically it was more or less like continuous feeding. But we didn't want her to be attached to the pump all the time. We wanted her to be able to walk, to run, to play with other kids, to draw, to sing, to have some fun and to develop as a baby. So basically what we did was to give her feedings through the nasogastric tube every 40 minutes.
What kind of treatment did she receive?
Well, yeah, as Dr. Derks mentioned, the treatment for the metabolic control is basically like a very strict diet. At that time, in the beginning, Nina was not able to tolerate cornstarch, which is key for the treatment, because it's a slow absorption carbohydrate that releases glucose in blood for longer periods. So it allows the patients to have longer and more stable fasting periods. But Nina was not able to tolerate it in the beginning, so we had to feed her every 40 minutes. But if cornstarch is tolerated, this is key for the diet and for the metabolic control, and to avoid hypoglycemia. Then, in terms of the impact of the disease on the immune system, again, as Dr. Derks mentioned, we use the granulocyte colony stimulating factor. It's one daily shot, and we give it to Nina ourselves. The whole treatment is done by the family at home. And then for the inflammatory bowel disease, as far as I know, it's treated with mesalamine, but we haven't reached that point yet, because luckily Nina hasn't developed this part of the disease yet, and we hope it will remain like that for a long time. And then, since we went to the Netherlands, we also included the empagliflozin as a medicine that has actually improved quite a lot Nina's condition and well-being. And I think that we will talk about it during the podcast, so I leave it there for now.
How did you find the right specialist for Nina?
As parents, when we got the diagnosis, we immediately wanted to find the best treatment and the best GSD doctors for Nina. So we started talking to some GSD families, also to some GSD associations in Spain, in Italy. Then we participated in an international conference, GSD International Conference in Spain, in which Dr. Weinstein, who is a well-known GSD doctor from the United States, he participated as well as a doctor. Well, he met Nina, he gave us some good pieces of advice. And since Nina was a very severe case, I know that Dr. Weinstein talked to Dr. Derks, So he heard about Nina for the first time. Then I also contacted Dr. Derks and UMCG through Skype and social media, and also MetaBurn, which is like the European reference network for inherited metabolic diseases. They knew about Nina because the coordinator of MetaBurn, Professor Scarpa, is based in the north of Italy, and Marta's family come from there. So we talked to him. So they also knew about Nina's case, and they also talked to Dr. Derks about her. Yeah, I think that in the end, different efforts came together until we finally met Dr. Derks first on Skype, and we had several conversations. And it was like love at the first sight, if I may say, if you allow me. Because, you know, from the very beginning, he showed not only a lot of interest in the disease and Nina's condition, but also on how we were living everything as a family, no, and what we wanted for Nina as parents.
Different roads then led you to Dr. Terry Derks, who is a specialist on GSD and also part of the European Reference Network meetup ERN that you just mentioned. How did you eventually end up in the Netherlands then, or more specifically in Groningen?
Yes, and then from there, I mean, there was a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy to do. And in this sense, Dr. Derks was very much supportive, because we needed like different letters to travel, to also to present to the Italian health authorities that were in the end the ones approving the referral to Groningen. So also with the support of MetaBurn, in the end, this cross-border healthcare directive of the European Union was finally implemented. The referral was approved. We prepared the cool box with the medicines, all the supplies, all the contingency plans for the trip. Even I have a cousin who is a nurse. He traveled with me and with my mother, Nina's grandma, together in the plane. And then we took a taxi in Amsterdam. We got to Groningen, and we started a hospital stay, which was a wonderful one.
And how did you experience the time in the hospital?
Like, you know, initially nobody wants to have a very long hospital stay anywhere, no. But for this hospital stay in the Groningen, we keep very, very, very good memories, and not only because of the excellent medical results, but also because how well we were treated. No, we were treated with a lot of humanity, with a lot of empathy. As I was saying, even before the trip, we had some video conferences with Dr. Derks and other doctors in which they were explaining the whole treatment, potential counterindications. So we were really reassured before traveling. And then once we were in the hospital, there were several things that we liked a lot. For instance, you know, I was invited as Nina's father to some multidisciplinary meetings with doctors, nurses, the logopedist, the pedagogue, the psychologist. So the whole medical team was there, and I was invited as Nina's father. So I could really participate in the meeting. I could tell the experiences that we were having, my opinion as a father, what I was observing. And I really had the feeling that these inputs were taking into account to decide the way forward. No? And you know, sometimes in some other places, this is not easy to see. And we were very glad that it happened that way. No? So we felt welcome, we felt listened to, we felt that the centrality of the patient approach was really implemented at its best, and that we were somehow part of the team.
What you just mentioned is a very nice example how important and also beneficial it is for patients and doctors to exchange in order to find the best possible treatment. And I think your story indeed shows that perfectly. And there was another experience I heard that you really enjoyed with students. What was that?
You know, even one day we were invited by Dr. Derks to participate in a lecture for first-year medical students. And it was also an amazing experience. We were there with with Nina, and we had a great time. It was about the student asking us questions to try to figure out what was the disease that Nina was living with. So it was an incredible experience, very, very nice one. And in the end, we were given the opportunity to, from a humble point of view, to give some tips to the students. And what I said was that I think that they should always take into account not only the disease but also the human part of the whole condition, as Dr. Derks and his team were doing.
We were talking about treatments before. Could you tell us more about the treatment for GSD1B up to now with GCSF?
Okay. Like Enrique explained, to maintain normal glucose concentrations in GSD1B patients, they need a strict dietary management. And this requires a normal intestinal function. Mm-hmm. However, in many GSD1B patients, the bowel inflammation is complicating this dietary treatment. So the GCSF has significantly improved this, but has certainly several problems. Besides its side effects, this treatment was not directed at the actual molecular cause why white blood cells have their problems in the GSD1B patients. And this process wasn't completely understood at all. This changed by the research by Maria Veda Cunha and Emil van Schaftingen, who are two fundamental researchers from Brussels, who published their very exciting results in 2019. And I got in contact with them very early in that process, in which they demonstrated that in GSD1B, the accumulation of a toxic compound with a very difficult name caused the neutrophils to malfunction. And based on that mechanism, they suggested that a group of drugs registered to treat patients with type 2 diabetes could in fact be helpful to remove this toxic compound in the patients.
So another treatment that already existed for diabetes patients could in fact also help GSD1B patients. And this insight came out of recent research. How did you apply this knowledge to the clinic and to the patients then?
Some physicians, including Saskia Wortmann and Johan van Hoven and we carefully started treating our patients. And in a way, the off-label use of a diabetes drug for the treatment of patients with a disorder associated with hypoglycemias seems counterintuitive and dangerous for the GSD1B patients. And we described our experiences in a very recent publication in a journal called Blood. And of course, more research should follow, but we hope that more GSD1B patients can benefit from this treatment. In a way, we are still in a very early stage and we need to be careful as this is a very new treatment. In my personal experience, starting this treatment should take place in the hospital in a multidisciplinary team. Enrique explained, we have a team with doctors, with psychologists, pedagogic people, but especially the dietitians play a very important role.
What is the advantage of this new treatment?
The treatment has really the potential to significantly improve quality of life for patients. It is around 100 times less expensive compared to the current standard treatment with GCSF. The current treatment is more rational as it is really focusing on the molecular mechanism. It is less painful instead of the daily injections with GCSF and thereby less traumatic for children. And moreover, as we expect now, the profile of side effects may also be more beneficial compared to the GCSF.
Mm-hmm. The paper that you just mentioned, it will also be downloadable on the homepage where you can listen to that podcast. So
great.
So Enrique, Nina also receives this new treatment. What kind of improvement do you see compared to the old treatment in daily life?
Yeah, well, for us, while we were in Groningen during the hospital stay, we saw a massive improvement in Nina's condition. because actually, thanks to the empagliflozin and the new treatment, she was finally able to tolerate cornstarch, which allowed her to have a more stable fasting periods. So not only her immune system was strength because she increased the neutrophils count, and apparently the functionality of those neutrophils was also improved as well. And then the absorption of the food, we saw it improving also week by week until she finally tolerated the cornstarch. So imagine how much our life improved when we shifted from feeding her every 40 minutes to feeding her every 3 to 4 hours, depending on the amount of energy that she's spending, or if she's awake, or if she's sleeping. So, yeah, we were extremely happy in that regard. And as we normally put it, my wife and I, for us, it was like going from being Nina's nurses to become really Nina's parents, because then we had time to enjoy Nina as our baby, to play with her and not to be watching the clock all the time, because at least that you may have not 40 minutes, but probably 3 to 4 hours. And
a huge difference, yeah. And how old is Nina now, and how is she doing?
Now she's 2 years and 9 months old, and she's doing very well. She's doing much better than before. And also, we have been told that the most difficult part to deal with this disease is when they are babies, right? Because they grow a lot, they are all the time like developing and so on. So it's more difficult to control the metabolism. But when they grow, apparently it becomes easier, and we now start to see that. Now it's much easier than before, thanks to this treatment. Also, thanks to the fact that she has grown and she has become stronger. So yes, in that regard, we are doing much better than we used to. And Nina is always, as I said in the beginning, I'm sorry, I'm the father, I'm saying this, but she's a wonderful human being, really. She's always happy, always laughing, singing. She's 2 years and 9 months old, and she's already making jokes. She laughs at me, and she's incredibly active and happy. She loves playing, meeting people. She speaks Spanish with me. She speaks Italian with her mother. She speaks a bit of English. Even when we were in Groningen, she learned to say "Thank you, Bell," and some other words. So she's doing very well.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Well, thanks a lot, both of you, for this insight. Of course, also the scientific insight. What is the disease and how can it be treated? But also how it is to live with the disease. For me, it was especially fascinating to see what you also mentioned, Enrique, how medical specialists and patients, or in your case, the family of patients, work together and exchange. I'm sure that will result in the future in better healthcare if we keep doing that. And I was also very moved by the article you published, Enrique, that gives a glimpse into the daily life with the sick child. So for our listeners, you will be able to find a link to this article, as well as to the scientific article that Terry and colleagues published about the new treatment, both on our site, umcg.impact.nl. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.